Hello, and welcome to The Art of Being Human. As I was working with guilt last time, I didn't quite finish the things I wanted to say about it, so I want to continue with guilt this time, because I think a lot of times people have mental health problems because they are feeling guilty about all kinds of things in their past, much of which they may not need to feel guilty about. So it becomes a real mental health issue, and so I do want to get into it and finish what I wanted to say last week. We have a very guilt-ridden society, and I'm just sorry about that, because it means everybody's guilty of something. Everybody's pointing their finger at somebody else. And the problem is we don't have to feel guilty about everything. Sometimes things happen because they happen. No one's really responsible for it. It just happens. But in our society, we're always trying to point the finger at somebody. Something happens and somebody has to pay the price for it. Somebody has to feel guilty about it. Somebody has to make recompense for it. And it may be just an odd thing where nothing has happened that a person truly is responsible for. But the fact is, they have to feel guilty. So people they'll sue over anything. I had a person come, this is just an aside, I guess, but I had a person come in my office. I'm not revealing any personal information. I'm not revealing any confidences, but I had a person come into my office whose shoelaces were untied on one shoe. And I didn't want him falling. It was an elderly gentleman with maybe not the best disposition. And I said, you know, your shoelace is untied. Maybe you want to tie it because I don't want you falling. And what he said to me was, "Oh, well, that's too bad. I was hoping to fall. Then I'd have something to sue you over laces that had been untied, like that was my fault, you know. I was hoping to fall so I would have something to sue you about." Well, I'm not responsible for a person tying their shoes, and I kind of treated it like it was a joke. But I don't think it was a joke. I don't. He was a kind of person who might do something like that. So, but we have a guilt-ridden society. People sue over anything. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of people are leaving the medical field. And it's one of the reasons why a lot of really top-notch counselors are leaving the field. Because if you do anything that the person doesn't like, or say anything that the person doesn't want, they can turn around and they can sue you for it. People can sue anybody for anything if they really want to do it. So a lot of people, especially supervisors, now I took this up, I don't know, maybe a few months ago, counselors, and I was one, of course, they all get supervised. They have supervisors so that they can go over their cases with somebody and they can make sure that they're not missing anything. And I think it's an important function, and I think it's a good function. But the supervisor is responsible for all of the clients or the patients that the counselor is seeing. So if the counselor makes a mistake or the patient thinks a mistake has been made, they sue the counselor, but they also sue the supervisor. The supervisor is legally responsible for all of the cases, all of the patients or the counselees that the counselor that they are supervising are seeing. Now, it seems a bit unfair to me. One of the reasons I did not have any trouble finding supervisors to supervise me when I was actively counseling is the fact I was so very, very careful of what I did. I did not take risks. And if I thought there was any chance that a person couldn't be helped by my care, I would refer them on, which is your legal responsibility to do. So if somebody I thought was involved with something that I couldn't take care of for some reason, I would refer them on to somebody else. They couldn't sue me. If they sued me because I referred them, that's exactly what I was supposed to do. It's in line with the code of ethics of the counselors. Counselors, psychiatrists, psychologists, anybody who's working in the mental health field, social workers included, they all have a code of ethics that they follow. We take courses on those code of ethics, so we know exactly what we're supposed to do in certain situations in order to be most help to the people that we're trying to help. So if we have any questions, we go to a supervisor. Should I do this? I'd like to do this. Is this safe to do? And so forth. And you get counseling in a sense, or supervisory help with the people that you're seeing. Now, this is common. You know, doctors call other doctors in for consultation. If they have a patient, they're not sure what's good for the patient. They think they know, but they want to be sure. They call in other specialists, and they all work together as a group to decide what is best for the patient. So consultations and supervision is not unusual at all, and we all go through that, and I think it's a very good thing. It's also, though, a very expensive thing, and you have to pay a lot of money to have a supervisor. And one of the reasons you have to pay a lot of money to have a person supervise counseling is the fact that it's risky for the supervisor, because if the counselor is inexperienced or they're just beginning their counseling career, and if they do make a mistake that's important, then not only do they get sued by the person that they're seeing, but the person that they're seeing may also sue the supervisor who is not seeing them. So you get supervisors responsible for people that they're not seeing, but that their supervisees are seeing. And I think that's too much. I really think it's too much. But because of the sue factor, if I can call it that, doctors, counselors, psychiatrists, they limit themselves on who they see. They limit themselves on who they supervise, because if they're not sure that the person that's doing the counseling is as expertise as they want them to be, then it's possible that they might get sued over something if they're handling a case that maybe is over their head. And then, of course, the supervisor gets sued as well. The agency gets sued. Everybody gets sued. So we are living in a very, very guilt-ridden society. And I know I had one of my supervisors tell me, I will supervise you because I trust you. I trust you in the types of cases that you see. I trust your techniques. I trust what you're doing for these people. Excuse me. But he says, I won't supervise anybody else, because I have to know that they're not going to make a lot of mistakes, because I have too much to lose. If they get sued, they could lose everything. They could lose their license, they could lose their practice, they could lose their careers. That's the same with doctors. You see, it's the same with anyone who's doing professional work in which they're working with other people. So supervisors charge an enormous amount of money because the risk is so high, and I can understand them doing it. So it is troubling what's happening in the field of psychology today. We're losing a lot of our really good counselors because they're leaving the field. A lot of doctors are leaving the field because the cost of liability insurance is enormous. They feel they can't afford it, and on it goes. We need to change the field of psychology. So that's kind of an aside, but it is important for you to realize as a person that we have a guilt-ridden society, and people pass out guilt all the time over anything because they sue over anything. Society condones guilt and worry. If you feel guilty, if you worry over something, that means that you're a caring person. This is according to society. It's not according to the scriptures. It's not according to Christianity. But people who are worrying over somebody else, it proves that they care about the person, or it proves that they care about the situation that they're worried about. Guilt shows repentance. Worry shows that you care. Both of them are false emotions. Both of them are immobilizing emotions, and yet we are taught if we worry, we care, so we have to worry to prove that we care. Or that repentant over something we've done and we feel guilty about it, so we have to continue to feel guilt. And yet those are the very two emotions that can destroy your mental health. So my take on it, to try to put this in balance, we have to have a realization that sometimes we do wrong. Now, instead of sinking ourselves in guilt over that, I'm not saying we shouldn't have any guilt at all. I think we should work with the guilt and not stay stuck in it. You will feel guilty, sometimes falsely, sometimes true guilt, but instead of just succumbing to the guilt, we need to do something to work with it, to pull ourselves out of it. Long-term guilt does not help you in terms of your mental health. It doesn't help you in terms of your career. You find you're not going to be able to be creative because you're just imprisoned by it. If you've ever done something that you really feel guilty about, you can be so obsessed with the guilt that you can practically not think about anything else. It just possesses you. The same thing with worry, the same thing with anger, the same thing with depression. It can be so immobilizing. The same thing with shame. All of those emotions can be so immobilizing that you cannot live a carefree, creative life because you're just taken in by those emotions and, in a sense, held prisoner to them. So instead of allowing yourselves to be prisoner of the emotions, you need to find a way to work with them, to do what you can to get out of them, to make your life as good as possible, and then let it go. There is an art to letting something go. It's not the same as losing control. It's letting go of control. If you lose control, you usually take an action, and sometimes the action is wrong, and sometimes it's based in anger. But if you let go of control, you say, okay, I've done what I can. I can't do any more than I can do, and this is it. I'm not going to hang on to that guilt and worry anymore. I'm going to let it go, and whatever happens, happens. There is a statement, let go and let God. Just drop it and let God take care of it. Once you've done everything that you can and God has forgiven you, other people need to forgive you as well. So we need to have peace. And the scripture says, peace I give to you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. That's a scripture from the King James Version. And we just can't allow ourselves to succumb to the fierceness of the guilt, because it can be fierce indeed. Now, what happens to you if you worry? Well, worry immobilizes you for the future. You don't think you're going to have a chance to make an impact. You don't have a chance to be successful. You don't have a chance to do anything because you're just too worried about it. Oh, I can't go out and quit my job and get another job. The jobs aren't there. Oh, I can't take a risk and stop working to go to school because if I go to school, it's going to cost money and I'm not going to have a job while I go to school, or maybe I'm not going to be able to go to school. When I got my master's or the certificate of advanced graduate study, these are the 2 graduate degrees which I have, I stopped teaching to go back to school. And I took a part-time job. And that part-time job supported me. It was like 20 hours a week. And it supported me. And I just lived within the limits of what I earned. And I lived with my mother, so I didn't even have a dormitory expense. And she didn't charge me for living with her while I was going to school. So I was able to make it on 20 hours a week of work, plus doing my graduate education and living at home with my mother. Now, if I hadn't been able to live at home with my mother, I would have had to work more and go to school less. So instead of taking 3 or 4 courses, I would have only taken 1 or 2 courses. It would have spread out and lengthened my education a lot longer than it did. And I had to be concerned about that because some graduate courses, some graduate education courses, they only allow you 8 years to get your master's or 8 years to get your certificate of advanced graduate study. I don't know how many years is allowed for a doctorate, but in some ways you can take as much time as you want to get your undergraduate education, your master's, I don't mean your master's, but your bachelor's, Bachelor of Arts, Bachelor of Science. You can usually take as long as you want for that. But when you get into graduate school, the time is limited to any number of years. So if you're going to graduate school, you need to know how many years do you have to get the degree. I know in my case it was limited to 8 years. I got it a lot sooner than that. But I got it a lot sooner than that because I was able to stop teaching. I was able to stop doing my profession and then do part-time work for 20 hours a week, live at home with my mother, and I managed to buy all of our groceries on that. I went to places where you get 4 items for $1 or 5 items for $1. There were stores back then where you could do that, and I was able to buy our groceries and take care of the food for my mother and myself on 20 hours a week while getting my graduate education, buying my books, and all of that kind of thing. So, but it feels like a risk, and in a way it is a risk. And a lot of people feel so worried about the future, they're not willing to take that risk, to drop something, to go somewhere else. When I went back to graduate school, I dropped my teaching, and there was one job I had that was part-time counseling in a high school that I had for a while, for a year, and that helped out too. Plus I got some scholarship money and all of that. It's hard work to take the risk of stopping something to begin something. But if you let worry overwhelm you, you won't even give it a chance. And you don't want to be so stymied by whatever worry that you have that you can't be creative. You can usually work things out and do something that you want to do and make it work in some way, shape, or fashion, but you've got to be creative about it, and you can't allow yourself to be overwhelmed with worry. Now, the origins of guilt, a lot of the guilt that we have come from our own childhood memories. Parents say, I won't like you if you don't do this. Oh, I'll love you more if I do that. Our worth as a human being should not be based on what we do. Our worth as a human being is going to be based on who we are and how we are. And we should not allow past memories of family problems to so interfere with us that we are not able to create something that we need to create. Then the child feels worthless, a child feels unloved, they feel they're not perfect. And remember, we've gone over perfectionism. Some people feel that they're not worth anything if they're not perfect, and they strive to be perfect. That means for them, doing everything that they're told to do, the best that they can do it. Well, sometimes that's appropriate, but sometimes it's not. If you want to go to graduate school, if you want to get a new job, if you want to start a new business, you can't let past failures or your perception of past failures, which may not have been failing at all, but you perceive it to be, you can't allow the past perceptions to interfere with what you want to do and the creativity of what you want to do. That's important. There's self-imposed guilt when you feel that you're violating your own standards. Sometimes you are, and that needs to be worked through and made right. Sometimes you're not, and here again it's a key of knowing what's false and what's true. What's false guilt and what's true guilt. You need to know the difference between that. Sometimes it's a spouse-related guilt where a spouse will say, well, how can I love you if you do this? Or how can I love you if you do that? The proper thing is, I love you because I love you because I love you. No other reason than that. You are who you are, who you are. It doesn't mean I like everything you do, but it doesn't mean I don't like you. We separate the behavior then from the human being. We love the human being. It doesn't mean we love everything that the human being does. So we need to get that squared away. We need to say, okay, I love you. I know you've done things wrong. I still love you, but I won't tolerate a certain type of behavior from you, because if you behave in a certain way, we won't be able to continue the relationship. So you have spouse-related guilt. You have children-inspired guilt, where children make parents feel guilty. I wouldn't be this way if you weren't working full-time. I wouldn't be this way if you hadn't taken drugs before I was born. It's easy for a child to make a parent feel guilty, and you can't let a child do that. You can't give them that much power. There is a story, and this is a true story, of a woman who was on drugs, and she did terrible things on drugs, and then she had 3 children. She gathered her children together one day, and she says, look, I did awful things before you were born. I'm sorry about that, but you're not gonna throw guilt up at me, because I'm not doing those things now. I'm a good parent to you now, so I'm not going to allow you to use what I did before you were born to make me feel guilty. In other words, here the guilt stops. I've made amends for what I've done, and you will not make me feel guilty. I will not allow you to make me feel guilty. And that was a good thing to do, because the children didn't even try to make her feel guilty, and it was a much healthier family relationship after that. So you do have children-inspired guilt. And some people manipulate other people to make them feel guilty, because if you make a person feel guilty, they'll do whatever you want. And that's not good either. You should not be trying to make people feel guilty. You should be able to help them to work through the guilt instead. There's school-inspired guilt, where a child feels that they're not going to be making the grade unless they do what they can for their team or what the teacher asks them to do. Businesses thrive on guilt. If you're too heavy, take this medication. If you're too heavy, follow this program. And so society causes people, and businesses cause people to feel guilty. But then, of course, if you buy their product, you won't feel guilty anymore. Guilt can be extremely manipulative. Society plays on it, people play on it, people use it against each other. It's just a horrible thing. But some people choose to feel guilty, and the reason for feeling guilty is they get a payback for it. Remember, if you are feeling guilty, people will feel sorry for you. People will say, oh, that's okay, don't worry about it, it's okay. And what happens is that you can manipulate other people into feeling sorry for you by showing them that you feel too guilty, and then they try to ease the guilt for you. Whenever a person behaves in a certain way for a long period of time, they're getting something from it. There is a payback, and they're getting something from it, because if they weren't, they wouldn't continue to do it. Now, there is a purpose for guilt. Sometimes you can be a better person if you feel guilty about things that you've really done wrong, and it's not false guilt. Then you can do better, and you know you can make your life better. Then there is a purpose for it. I'm not saying we should go through life without guilt. I'm saying we need to go through life without getting stuck in guilt, and to change things that we need to change to make it better. But if it's false guilt, to recognize that and not to feel guilty about something that you don't have to feel guilty about. Now, we're just about out of time, and I think I'm going to close it here. And the next time we get together, I'm going to talk about depression and grief, and then grief and bereavement, and we'll go on from here. So thank you for watching. I hope this has been a help, and please join me next time.